A very good evening. Thank you everyone for joining. We're not the extreme late night Shmiras Halashon anymore, but it's still pretty late. It still takes a little energy, and we thank you all for joining. We thank our hostess and our host as well for generosity of opening their home to us. And Be'ezus Hashem, we will begin a session on Shmiras Halashon, focusing on chapter 25 in the Mesilas Yesharim, chapter Chaf Hey. The pagination, if you're in the classic edition, is in page 322, is the Hebrew. But it's chapter 25, B'derech Keniyas HaYirah, the manner of acquiring fear of sin. I know all of us have been watching the news, whether it be internet-based or radio-based. The news from Sandy Hook Elementary School left the entire nation in tremendous shock. And our hearts certainly go out, entire community, tremendous loss, a lot of pain, a lot of shock. Whenever these types of things happen, after you start dealing with the shock, and after commiserate, express condolences, there always erupts a little bit of discussion, or a lot of discussion, regarding the First and Second Amendments of this great country. First Amendment, freedom of speech. Some of these types of incidents happen as a result of incitement, hate crime, and some, as this incident, had to do, at least according to those who choose to debate the topic, with gun control, Second Amendment, issues of whether there should be more focused regulation. Not necessarily that there should be less guns on the street, but maybe the guns should be in the hands of the right people. Both of these concepts are concepts that we, as Jews and as focused on Shmiras Halashon, can readily identify with, because we do not believe that any power, not speech, not guns, not anything, should be unharnessed. Everything should be harnessed correctly. And if it's harnessed correctly, you'll see good things from it. And if it's not harnessed correctly, be it speech, be it any other energy, there are going to be problems. And one of the thoughtful things that we definitely should examine when we get introspective is, in what way should any energy that we have be properly channeled. Our topic tonight specifically is Shmiras Halashon, speech, but it really, as we understand quite readily, applies to every single type of energy, resource, etc. Now, I came across a fascinating presentation by a commentator on the topic of where was God? And this is a common question whenever there's tragedy. Why do bad things or suffering happen to good people, especially children? The punishment theory doesn't seem to wash, doesn't work in the minds of anybody who's looking at this. And he made a very, very provocative comment, which I think we it deserves a moment to think about. He said, where was God? We disinvited him. We refused to have prayer in school. And if prayer in school would violate someone's religious beliefs, so then have a moment of silence in which people can be introspective according to the teachings that their parents shared with them. But we're so anti, we're so protective. We was God, you disinvited him. What do you want? Now, obviously, his answer is not the full answer because you can't really disinvite Hashem. It was a commentator. I saw a video clip of it. Someone sent me by email. That's how I get all my good material. It's sent to me by email. It's a good time saver. Let other people do the browsing. You just pick up the pieces. And he definitely said, you're going to see God's presence. It's going to be in the people reaching out, comforting. You're going to see the self-sacrifice, the devotion, the commemoration. You're going to see God's hand. But if you want to know why he wasn't present 1,000,000,000%, quite frankly, and he repeated again his provocative statement, I believe we need to think about it. Rabbi A.J. Twersky, in one of his books, comments that the admission to one of the Hasidic mentors was that students, prospective students, had to be able to answer the following question. The question is, where is God? And the first reaction, of course, is very simplistic. God is everywhere. That's what they taught me. God is everywhere. Where is God? And after 3-4 times repeating the question, the student got the message that he's going to have to come up with something better than that. And if he couldn't, he asked the mentor, if I'm getting it wrong, so you tell me. And the master would say, where is God? Wherever man lets him in. You got to invite him. You got to want him. And this again is a theme that runs through Shmiras Halashon, even though we believe in freedom of speech. But it's not freedom without guidelines. There's a lot of freedom. You talk about the Talmud. It's no holds barred. I mean, you could say anything. You could argue with anyone. No one gets free license without critique. But they're guidelines. And that's a major theme in Shmiras Halashon. It's a major theme in everything that we do in our lives. Hashem is everywhere. He's in the business setting. He's, believe it or not, in the shul setting too. Even at board meetings, God's present. He's in our dining room, he's in our bedroom, he's everywhere. And that attitude creates Yirah Chet. It creates it in ourselves, it creates it in the new generation, it creates it in people. People become aware that Hashem's here. One of the great gifts of technology is that you could live a life where everything is recorded. And suddenly it becomes clear to us, what does it mean when it says in the Mishnah in Avos, Ayin roa v'ozen shoma'as v'chol ma'asecha b'sefer nichtavim, there's an eye that sees, an ear that listens, and everything is recorded in the ledger. The Chafetz Chaim in the beginning of the 1900s commented about motion pictures, those things that you had to crank. So he says this makes it a little bit easier for us to understand what it means that Hashem is going to give us a visual showing of our life after 120, and we should go through it, and we'll be our own judge, unencumbered by this world. We'll be able to judge ourselves and see, was that a good thing to do? Was that a good thing to say? He says, now that you have motion pictures, it becomes a little bit easier for you to understand how you could play back something from the past. And now?
How are they going to show things you didn't say? The good things, meaning that you didn't say, that you held, is how is that going to be shown?
Everything's recorded. Because it's
standing there.
It's wired. No. It's wired to your neshama. The same way that in a dream scene, the best mashal is a person's dreams, where even though it may not say on a person's face who he is or where he's going, but you can feel it. You ask somebody, so who was that person? I know it was my grandfather. Did you ever see your grandfather? No, I know. I mean, you know. There's information imparted by like a sixth sense. I know the man was a fireman. I just know it. And I know he was on his way to a fire. But how do you know? Was he driving a fire engine? No, I sensed it. That sensing of things is what we're describing, and in that approach, it's not just what you said, it's even what you wanted to say. Because all of that feeling, all of that is recorded as well. Imagine if you had a regular pilot, so they just have the black box. It's recorded, all the instrument changes and everything. But when they sent, I think a chimpanzee into space, and the same thing when they do all these tests with astronauts for the first time, sending them somewhere, they're not just recording all the things they do and say, they're recording everything. They get EKG, they get EEG, everything's hooked up. They're recording everything about the person. And if a person has self-control not to say something, I don't know how they do it, if it's all the juicy words you wanted to say actually get recorded, or it just gets recorded on a scale, the person was considering doing an 89 Lashon Hara and held themselves back. But however it is, it's actually recorded. It's a recording of life experience. Let's begin chapter Chaf-Hei, chapter 25. Ach derech kiniyas hayirah hazos, the way that a person goes about acquiring this type of fear of God, that means that everything that I do is dictated by what Hashem wants. There are two truths that you need to know. Ha'echad, number one, that Hashem's presence is everywhere. And Hashem pays attention, He's the mashgiach, on everything small or big. A nistar mineged einav, there is nothing that is hidden from Him. Now, this actually requires a certain rethinking, because we as human beings living in this world think of ourselves as reality. And we start trying to think about mitzvahs, and it becomes very otherworldly. And we forget that the other world is the real world, is the real values. On an intellectual level, I believe we understand this. Rav Noach Weinberg had a classic presentation called The 5 Levels of Pleasure. And he asks, essentially, you go on a vacation. Where do people go on vacation nowadays? Used to be Florida. Now if you're in New Jersey, you go to New York. Where do you go on vacation?
If somebody has vacation.
If they have vacation. That's a very good answer. If tickets to Eretz Yisrael are 350, maybe you're going to Eretz Yisrael. You're on vacation and you eat a really good lunch. Wow, this is a good lunch. Multiple choice. Was it hamburgers, steak, sushi, or vegetable soup? But you had a good lunch. And then you walk outside, and there, to your dismay, on a busy 6-lane traffic road, you see a child, 2.5 years old, in the middle lane. You don't quite know how he managed to navigate 2 lanes of traffic safely, but he's in the middle lane. And everybody's moving along, and it's a miracle he hasn't been hit yet. And you figure out a way, a lot of gumption, talent, guts. You navigate your way through the lanes of traffic, pick up the child, safely get him back to the sidewalk. You save the kid's life. The parents arrive. They were distracted. They didn't even know the kid was missing. They suddenly realize what happened. You get a few kisses in the deal, hugs. Yeah? What do you remember from that vacation? The lunch, or that you saved the kid's life? Which one stimulates you better? The lunch. It stimulates you. It's a physical stimulation. Which one are you going to remember? Which one are you going to treasure? You saved someone's life. The more spiritual the pleasure, the more real it is on a very real level. And we all understand this. Which one is more important to you? A good hot dog off the rotisserie, or a good relationship? A good relationship, I hope. But you can't touch it. You ever touch a relationship? It's there. It's electric. You can't touch it. I think we all know, though, the more abstract it is, the more spiritual it is, the less physical it is, the greater it is. But in a value system, when you make daily choices, it's easy to forget that. And the first thing to realize is that Hashem is everywhere paying attention. And the second concept, which is equally critical, is to be aware that it's only when you constantly remind yourself of Hashem's reality and of that spiritual dimension that you're going to be able to stick to your value system. Because we live in a world that's physical and does not easily affirm those values. Drop down about 5-6 lines to the middle of a line. V'kevan sheyisporer lo, once a person becomes clear, Shabachol makom shehu, no matter where you are, hu omed lefnei shechinaso yisborach, you're in front of Hashem. Oz me'eleha, right away, automatically, tava bo hayira ve'apachad penyikasha b'maisav. You already become scared, not scared that you're going to get punished, scared that you shouldn't mess up. You know, an actor goes on stage and they're scared, nervous, whatever word you want to use. So if the person's getting $10 million for acting, so I know why he's scared. Doesn't want to lose his job. Yeah? But a child or a volunteer, someone part of a club who's acting, also gets scared before they go on stage. What are they scared about? They don't have $10 million to lose. What are they scared about? They're scared about messing up. Because they know they're on stage and they know it makes a difference. The minute a person realizes that he's always in the presence of Hashem, he becomes scared of messing up. And automatically it makes a difference. Me'eleha. Once you have that clarity, that's why this slogan is so important to the Jew. Whether you got a little bumper sticker, a little magnet that says, Shivisi Hashem lenegdi, Samid, Hashem is in front of me always, or Dalefne miata omed, know before whom you stand, or we just inculcate that concept in front. Because automatically, if you know you're on stage, then you act differently. I had cousins, my parents' cousins, they should rest in peace. They had a little joke. They had a Sefer Torah in the house. It was in the living room. It was in a nice case. However, they had a family heirloom, a Sefer Torah. And whenever someone wanted to say Lashon Hara, they started speaking negatively, they would say, oh no, you can't do that in this room because we're in the presence of a Sefer Torah. Now, it was such a funny joke because obviously their intent wasn't, so let's go to the kitchen where we can speak the Lashon Hara. Their intent was to break the mood and realize that you're in the presence of a Sefer Torah. But a person's always in the presence of a Sefer Torah, so to speak. You're in presence of Hashem. That awareness that you're on stage makes all the difference. If you're in this edition, I'm dropping to the bottom line of the page. V'amnam, still, hadavar hazeh eino mitztayer heitev b'seichel ha'adam, it's still difficult for a person to picture this. Ela ayidei hasmodas ha'isponenus v'hastaklus hagadol, unless you really make the effort to constantly pay attention. Because this is distant from our senses, this is not a physical awareness. It doesn't click in a person's psyche until he really pays attention to it. Now, I don't think what the Mesilas Yesharim is describing here is different than any relationship. Think about any relationship. A parent, a child, a spouse. If you don't have contact with that person for a while, so the very strong bond dissipates a little bit. It becomes a little bit vague. Person goes ahead and reads a note from that person. So it reinvigorates the relationship. You start remembering it better. You read the love note, or you encounter a law. You encounter something that, you know, we have our guidelines in our family. certain places that we frequent. We love to walk in the forest or on the beach or whatever. This is something we love to do, so you do it. So it reawakens those memories. But if you let life slide by, again, it dissipates. Same thing with our relationship with Hashem. If you keep reading the love note and reminding yourselves of the laws, of the things you like to do together, so then the relationship becomes stronger. And that's the role of Torah. Some people think, free choice. I won't learn Torah, and I have free choice. I want an even playing field. Someone once told me, when I was trying to get him to send his children to day school, he said, no, I had free choice. I'll let my children have free choice. I don't want to influence their free choice. I send them to day school, I'll be influencing their free choice. So in my head I said, you should be so lucky. Sending them to day school, you'll influence their free choice in a good way, Okay. But what I told them was, that's not free choice. Because they live in a physical world. They're constantly being bombarded and stimulated by physical stimulations. Unless you purposely bring into your life that love note from Hashem, so it's not an even playing field. TV doesn't give 50% time for religion and 50% time for violence and the things they think you should buy. They don't do that. They don't give 50-50. You have to consciously bring this 50% into your life if you want it to be an even playing field. And that he describes with a beautiful pasuk. He says, "L'ma'an yilmad li-Yirah." A person has to learn to fear Hashem. What's that learning about? Just fear Hashem. If it was just so simple as free choice. He says it's not. It's yilmad. You have to learn to fear. You have to make that effort in order to arrive at this fear of Hashem level. One final thought on this theme. My Rebbe in Yeshiva used to joke, if only we could bottle Yirah Shamayim. If only we could just put it in a little vial and give it out, and everybody can drink it, and we would have Yirah Shamayim. It doesn't work like that. A very accurate portrayal of Yirah Shamayim is that it's a life's work. They say a story of a pianist that walks up, and she does a magnificent job, beautiful presentation. So someone in the audience says, I would give my life to play like that. And the person sitting next says, she did. She gave her life to play like that. She sacrificed outings, she sacrificed all kinds of other pursuits to play like that. You want to? Yeah. But you got to give your life for it. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean give your life. Hashem protect us. But it's an endeavor. It's a major endeavor. And the first step to succeed in that endeavor is to be aware that it doesn't just come. It doesn't just come from goodwill. I'm a good guy. Why don't I just make the right decisions? If you don't purposely infuse yourself, coach yourself, associate with the right people, not going to happen, right? Take any basketball team, even your local 8th grade basketball team. If they don't have a good coach, if they don't gather together and spend time, then they're not going to amount to anything. And that's Yirah Shamayim, which I believe can be applied to all areas, but especially Shmiras Halashon, something that is so lacking intangible. It's kosher and not kosher. I think it's easier to appreciate. There are places I don't go, and there are places that I do go. There are things that I don't buy, things that I do buy, things I don't eat, things I do eat. It's very tangible. Shmiras Halashon can catch you anywhere. While there are people you don't want to talk to too much because you know they draw you into the wrong attitudes, but it's sometimes very hard even there to avoid them. Person's your boss. What are you supposed to do? And not just like it's not kosher, so I won't go there. Very hard. And the first step is to be aware that Hashem is in that room too. Let's move on to the handout. And this is very powerful and also has to do a bit with current events. Taken from the Chafetz Chaim, chapter 9. If one sees that his friend is partnering with someone else, and he estimates that it will cause his friend harm, he must tell him in order to save him. But he must fulfill the 5 conditions which we will outline. Now, we'll get to the 5 conditions in a moment. I highlight primarily 3 of them because that kind of gives you the major focus. But bear in mind here, even before we do those comments, Chafetz Chaim does not say that you have to tell them in response to a question that was asked of you. You have to tell them even if they don't ask, provided that these conditions are met. I came across in current events this past week a very, very challenging topic where a Jewish institution, which shall remain nameless, in the 1970s became aware that one of their teachers was in some way abusing, acting improperly with the students. The complaints started coming in, and eventually they let this gentleman go. Wasn't quite firing, but they didn't renew his contract even though he had been with the institution for many years, perhaps decades, and they let him go. He moved on to a teaching position in Florida, in a different Jewish school. Now this is being uncovered, being analyzed, and the question was posed to the headmaster of that school, prominent school. Why didn't you tell the school that hired him what's going on? Did you? No. Why didn't you? His response was, they didn't ask. His response was, their responsibility is to do due diligence of checking, and they didn't. So I don't have to tell. Now, whether he meant something deeper than what he said, we can discuss, and it's good to keep this case in your mind, what variables would change your answer. But for starters, his answer is a non-starter. For starters, it has nothing to do with whether that school in Florida called him or did not call him. He has an obligation to protect whoever's going to be compromised. The students, the school. He has an obligation to inform them of the problem. Now, there could be many variables as to what he really means. he may really mean we didn't do a full investigation. We kind of just sidestepped the whole thing by letting him go. And therefore, I didn't really have tangible information to call them with. Maybe that's what he meant. Maybe in the 1970s, it wasn't so clear that the behavior of this teacher constituted abuse, as the definition was at that time, perhaps, and at that time he wasn't aware. Fine. But the answer that he gave to the press, they didn't ask, so I didn't have to tell, is not a Jewish answer. Now, what are the criteria which the Chafetz Chaim outlines? A, you must be very careful not to conclude that the partnership is definitely bad. You have to really contemplate if it's truly damaging. The example I love to give is a person comes late to appointments, and you therefore feel that he is inconsiderate of others. Now, you're going to tell this to a potential partner, and you're going to say, he comes so late. He's so inconsiderate. You need to pause and think. Is the piece of information you're imparting truly damaging? You know, in different cultures, when they say they're going to meet at 7 o'clock and you saunter in at 7:20, no one blinks. And in other cultures, 7 o'clock! 7 o'clock! They can't even get the words out straight. They're so angry. You need to know what culture and whether it's truly damaging, etc. If you found that a person was not honest and they're being hired as treasurer, yeah, I think that's a black and white damaging situation. B, you're not allowed to make the issue worse than it is. This is a tough thing to fulfill, because sometimes when you speak, people anticipate that you're understating it or overstating it. And sometimes you have to purposely say it in very gentle terms, and you're tempted that they should take you seriously, so you overstate it a little bit. And it becomes very confusing whether you've communicated properly. But your goal is to communicate accurately and not to blow it out of proportion. And C, only allowed to intend it for constructive purposes, to save someone from damage, not because you dislike the person. So if the person damaged you in the past, you're at risk of expressing this damaging information in a negative way. That doesn't absolve you. In the note we comment, you have to force yourself to say only for constructive reasons. It doesn't absolve you, but you have to figure out how to do it, because you're not allowed to violate this C. This third comment, that it has to be constructive, includes another insight, that you have to think if anything constructive is going to come of it. Because if the person is going to partner with them anyway, she's head over heels over him, and she's going to get married anyway, so then telling her this constructive information is not going to help. Chafetz Chaim plays it out and says what might happen is that once they're married, and he does one of these things, loses his temper or whatever the information was, she's going to say, oh, so this is what my neighbor was talking about. And all you do is add fuel to the fire, and it didn't help anyone. You're only imparting the information if, in your estimation, it's going to have a constructive purpose. Yeah.
I don't think it's better that she's prepared.
You can throw all kinds of variables in, but you're going to have to, at the end of the day, answer this question.
That would seem to be constructive.
Is it constructive? Is it constructive? You have to be able to answer that honestly. Prepared? I mean, you tell me. The person is so prepared. Did they go for counseling on how to handle an anger management spouse?
Maybe they would.
Before the marriage? Yeah?
Maybe.
Oh, maybe. Okay. Any questions? No questions. I hope I was sufficiently thought-provoking.
Very thorough.
Okay. So I thank everyone for joining. And Amit Hashem, in the next few days, we'll send out January's dates. We'll work out mutually agreeable times, etc. Thank you all for joining. And let's be in touch.
Thank you. Thank you.